I never thought my wedding would be remembered for what didn't happen. We were supposed to get married in late May, small backyard ceremony, nothing fancy. I'd been saving for 2 years. Between my part-time job as a nurse's aide and some help from my mom, I had around $18,000 set aside for the wedding and honeymoon. It wasn't a fortune, but it meant everything to me. My fiancé, Mark, wasn't really into wedding planning, so most of it fell on me. His mother, Linda, offered to help, which I took as a kind gesture at first. She was a retired bookkeeper, always talking about how she knew numbers better than anyone. Mark trusted her completely. I didn't, not really. She had a way of making me feel like I was borrowing her son's life instead of sharing it. 2 months before the wedding, Linda insisted we combine the wedding funds into a joint account she managed. She said it would make payments easier and help us track everything. I hesitated, but Mark pushed, saying, "She's just trying to help us get organized." I gave in. That was my first mistake. 3 weeks later, I called the venue to confirm the deposit. They said they hadn't received any payment. I checked with the florist, the photographer, same story. I called Linda that evening. "Hey, I just got off the phone with the venue," I said. "They said no deposit came through." There was a pause, then she laughed softly. "Oh, sweetheart, I decided to move the money for safekeeping. You never know with these online accounts. Don't worry, it's fine." "For safekeeping where?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. "It's in a term deposit. You'll get it back after the wedding." I felt my stomach drop. "After the wedding? We need that for the wedding." Linda sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You're young. You'll thank me when you learn how to manage money better." When I told Mark, he brushed it off. "She probably just got confused. I'll talk to her." He didn't, and the wedding date got closer. A week later, I checked the account myself. It was empty, $0. I called the bank, and after a few transfers, a woman told me the funds were withdrawn and transferred to a personal savings account under Linda's name. I remember sitting on my couch, shaking, staring at the phone like maybe I'd misheard. When I confronted her again, she acted insulted. "You think I'd steal from my own family? Don't be dramatic. I used it for the down payment on a new car. Mine broke down, and I still have to drive your fiancé to work sometimes." "You what?" I said, my voice cracking. "That was my wedding money." She looked right at me and said, calm as anything, "It's still in the family, dear." That night, I packed my things and drove to my sister's apartment. Mark didn't follow. He called once just to say, "Mom didn't mean any harm. She's family." I called off the wedding the next morning. Over the next year, I rebuilt. I moved to a different part of town, took extra shifts, and started saving again, this time under my name only. I didn't hear much from Mark or his mother, but through mutual friends, I learned they still lived together in Linda's small 2-bedroom house on the east side of town. He'd quit his job after some health issues, and she was falling behind on her property taxes. One day, while scrolling real estate listings, something caught my eye. Linda's house, for sale, foreclosure listing. I clicked the details 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The address, the layout, the faded blue shutters. I remembered every inch of that place. The asking price was low, very low. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel angry. I felt focused. That was the moment I decided I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to make things right, my way. I didn't rush into it. I spent 2 full weeks doing research before calling the real estate agent listed on the foreclosure notice. The property was in pre-foreclosure. The bank had started the process, but it wasn't public yet. That meant I had a window to make an offer directly. I asked the agent casually, "So, if someone wanted to buy it before auction, what would that look like?" He said, "You just need to cover the outstanding balance and the bank's minimum. It's honestly a good deal if you can pay fast." I could. Over the past year, I'd saved more than I ever thought I could. Between my nursing shifts and small side gigs, I had a cushion. Not enough to buy outright, but enough for a down payment and a loan approval I'd already been pre-qualified for. The next week, I signed the papers. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister, until everything was finalized. The deed came in my name. I remember holding it in my hands, reading the line that said grantor, Linda M. Ellis, and feeling a slow, steady calm wash over me. It wasn't triumph, it was quiet satisfaction. The following month, I got a message from Mark out of nowhere. "Hey, Mom's losing the house. I don't know what to do." I didn't reply right away. I just typed, "I heard, hope you figure something out." A week later, I received a letter from the management company that handled the property transition. It confirmed that I was now the legal owner, and the current occupants, Linda and Mark, had 30 days to vacate. I didn't change a word in that notice. I just signed it. 2 weeks in, Mark called again. His voice sounded rough, tired. "Please," he said, "is there any way we can get more time? Mom's not doing great, and I'm trying to find somewhere cheap." I paused. "You've got 3 more weeks, right?" "Yeah, but..." "Then use them," I said and hung up. The day they moved out, I went by the property for the first time since buying it. The front yard was overgrown, the porch light was hanging by a single wire, and someone had taped a note to the door. It was in Linda's handwriting. "I hope you're happy. You took everything." I stood there for a minute, just staring at it. Then I smiled, because she was wrong. I didn't take everything. I only took back what she'd stolen. Over the next few months, I had the place cleaned up, repainted, repaired the roof, replaced the kitchen cabinets she'd let rot. I didn't live there, though. I rented it out to a young couple with a baby. They were grateful, respectful, and on time with payments, something Linda never was. Occasionally, I'd see her at the grocery store or at a local diner. She'd look away first, every time. Mark eventually moved out of town. People always ask if I ever got the wedding money back. No, but in the end, I got something better. I got proof that you can lose everything to greed and still rebuild without sinking to the same level. I didn't need to scream or fight or chase anyone down. All I had to do was wait, and when the moment came, act quietly, cleanly, and without apology. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming control. In that house, it's still mine. Every month, when the rent hits my account, I think of Linda and the day she told me. It's still in the family, dear. She was right. It is. Next story. I used to think marriage was about partnership, 2 people growing together. Turns out, in my case, it was me growing while he stayed under his mother's shadow. I met Kyle in college. He was charming, funny, and endlessly polite, especially to his mom, Sharon. She called every day, sometimes twice. I used to think it was sweet. Looking back, it was the first red flag I ignored. We got married at 26. At the time, I was an operations coordinator at a mid-sized logistics company in Denver, and Kyle was still figuring out what he wanted to do. He bounced between sales jobs and marketing projects that never paid much. Sharon would always say, "He just needs the right opportunity." I worked, he dreamed. For the first few years, I didn't mind carrying more of the weight. I believed in him. But every decision we tried to make, buying a car, saving for a home, even choosing where to spend holidays, had to go through Sharon's invisible approval process. If she didn't like it, Kyle didn't like it. Simple as that. Things got worse when I got promoted to operations manager. I'd started managing a small team, traveling for client meetings, and earning more money than Kyle ever had. I thought he'd be proud. He was. "Mom thinks you're changing," he said one night over dinner. "Changing how?" I asked. "She says you talk like a boss now, like you're better than people." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He was. Over the next few months, Sharon's comments got under my skin. Every time we saw her, she'd say something like, "Careful, honey, ambitious women scare men away." Or, "Don't forget your husband's the head of the household." Kyle never said a word to defend me. The real breaking point came a year later, when I was offered a director-level position at a startup. It was the kind of opportunity that could change everything, equity, a real leadership role, freedom to build something from scratch. When I told Kyle, he just stared at me. Then he said, "Mom doesn't think it's a good idea." I blinked. "Excuse me." "She says it'll be too stressful for you, that we should focus on starting a family instead." I laughed in disbelief. "Kyle, are you hearing yourself? This is my career." He sighed. "You wouldn't understand. She just wants what's best for us." That night, I realized something. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a second mother. 2 weeks later, I took the job anyway. He moved out 3 days after that, back to Sharon's house, of course. His final words before he left were, "You made your choice. Don't come running back when it falls apart." I didn't. The new job was brutal at first, long hours, endless strategy meetings, tight budgets, but I was good at it, better than I thought. Within 2 years, I helped turn the company into a stable, profitable operation. When our founder decided to step down, the board voted unanimously for me to take over. At 33, I became CEO. By then, Kyle and I hadn't spoken in over 5 years. I didn't know what he was doing, until one morning, my HR director came into my office with 2 new hire files for approval. "Kyle Morrison, applying for regional sales manager," she said, sliding the folder across the desk. "And Sharon Morrison, applying for administrative coordinator in the same department." I stared at the names, feeling the strangest chill crawl down my spine. My ex-husband and his mother were applying for jobs at my company. I didn't say anything right away. I just smiled slightly and told HR, "Let's move them forward to interviews." Because suddenly, I knew exactly how I wanted this to go. I didn't rush the process. If I'd acted out of anger, it would have looked petty. I wanted it to look professional. I told HR to schedule both interviews on the same day. Kyle was at 10:00 a.m. Sharon's was at 11:30. They didn't know who the CEO was. The company had grown since I took over, and my name wasn't exactly public-facing. Still, I wondered if they'd figure it out once they walked through the lobby and saw my portrait on the executive wall. That morning, I sat in my office with the blinds half closed, watching the security feed from the reception desk. At 9:52, there he was. Kyle. Same posture, same half-cocky smile. He'd put on a few pounds, but otherwise, he was the same man who'd left me for his mother's approval. Sharon walked in with him, clearly tagging along for moral support. I didn't go to the interviews myself. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I instructed HR to run them as usual, collect their resumes, and note their salary expectations. By noon, the HR director came back to my office, shaking her head. Honestly, they weren't great. She's demanding, he's defensive. But they're both desperate, said they'd work anywhere under anyone. I smiled faintly. Under anyone, huh? Yeah, she said. Why do you ask? I slid the files toward her and said, schedule a follow-up meeting for tomorrow. I'll handle it personally. The next morning, they came in together again, which already told me everything I needed to know. I greeted them in the conference room. When Kyle saw me, his face froze. Sharon's smile vanished. Good morning, I said calmly, extending my hand to each of them. Please have a seat. Sharon spoke first. You work here. I do, I said, sitting across from them. Actually, I run the company. Silence. Kyle blinked a few times, like he was waiting for someone to say it was a prank. I'm the chief executive officer, I continued evenly, and I wanted to personally meet 2 applicants who caught my attention. He finally found his voice. You can't, you're not seriously considering. Oh, I'm considering everything, I said. Let's start with your experience. For the next 10 minutes, I went through their resumes line by line. I asked about gaps in employment, references they didn't list, and performance issues from previous jobs that showed up in background checks. Sharon tried to interrupt a few times. That's not fair. Those were misunderstandings. But I stayed calm, professional, almost detached. When I closed the folders, I said, I appreciate your time. We'll be in touch after final review." They stood up to leave. Sharon muttered something under her breath. "You always thought you were better than us." I didn't respond. I just smiled politely and said, "Thank you for coming in." 3 days later, HR sent out rejection emails to both of them. I thought that would be the end of it, but a week later, I got a voicemail from Kyle. "You didn't have to humiliate us," he said. "We were just trying to get back on our feet. Mom's sick, I'm doing my best, and you sit there acting like you're above us." I listened twice, then deleted it. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about closure. He once told me I wouldn't understand what it meant to lead, that I'd fail without his mother's guidance. Now he'd stood in front of me, asking me for a job. That was enough. A few months later, the company opened a new regional branch. We made the announcement in a local business magazine, and they ran a feature on women in leadership. When I saw my photo on the cover, I didn't think about power or revenge. I thought about that night years ago when I sat alone on our old couch, listening to Kyle pack his bags after choosing his mother over me. He left to make her proud. I rose to prove I didn't need either of them to define me. And in the end, when they stood across from me, desperate, quiet, small, I realized the real victory wasn't firing them. It was becoming the kind of woman they never believed I could be. Next story. When my father passed away, all I got was a voicemail from my aunt saying, "You might want to call the lawyer, honey. Things have been handled." That was it. No condolences, no visit, nothing. I was 24 at the time, still paying off student loans, working as a teller at a small community bank in Kansas City. My dad and I had always been close, but when he remarried, things changed. His new wife, Margaret, had 2 adult kids from her previous marriage, Jason and Courtney, both older than me, both jobless half the time. Dad used to say, "They're trying, give them a chance." But I knew better. They weren't trying. They were waiting for him to die. When the will was read, I learned just how patient they'd been. According to the paperwork, everything, the house, savings, life insurance, went to Margaret for distribution at her discretion. My name wasn't mentioned once. It didn't take a genius to figure out what that meant. Margaret got the house. Jason got Dad's truck. Courtney sold off his tools on Facebook Marketplace 2 days after the funeral. When I asked about it, Margaret smirked. "Your dad wanted to keep things simple. You're young, you'll make your own money." Jason laughed. "Guess that business degree didn't teach you much about family hierarchy." That moment burned itself into my memory. The way they laughed, the way they looked at me like I was some outsider trying to take what wasn't mine. So I left without another word. But I promised myself one thing before I drove away from that house. Someday, they'd regret laughing at me. The next few years were slow. I worked my way up from teller to loan officer, then assistant branch manager. Banking isn't glamorous, but it's stable. You learn people, their habits, their weaknesses, the way money makes them feel safe until it disappears. By 29, I'd moved to a mid-sized regional bank in Overland Park. I wasn't rich, but I was steady. I knew how to make money grow and, more importantly, how to see who wasn't good at keeping it. That's when Jason walked in. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because we were short-staffed and I was helping cover new account appointments. When I saw his name on the screen, I froze. Jason Turner. Same birthday, same ID photo smirk. He didn't recognize me at first. Maybe he didn't expect the little stepsister he'd laughed at years ago to be sitting behind the banker's desk now. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice level. "You're here to open a business account." "Yeah," he said proudly. "Me and my mom started a home renovation thing. Big plans. Need a line of credit." Margaret's name was on the paperwork too, and Courtney. All 3 of them, joint applicants, using Dad's old property as collateral for a business loan. I kept my face still, professional, polite. Inside, my pulse was pounding. "Let's go over some details," I said. For the next 30 minutes, I reviewed their financials. It was bad late payments, overdrafts, 2 small loans already in default. They weren't managing anything right, but the arrogance hadn't changed. Margaret bragged about connections, Jason talked about buying new trucks, and Courtney kept scrolling through her phone, barely paying attention. When I finished the application review, I said, "We'll need to verify your documentation and assets before approval. It might take a few weeks." Jason smirked. "You do that, sweetheart." That word, sweetheart. The same tone he'd used when I was 18, and they told me I wasn't really family. I smiled tightly and said, "Of course." As soon as they left, I closed my office door and sat back, thinking. I had access now. Access to their accounts, their credit history, their business structure. For the first time since my dad's funeral, I had power, quiet, invisible power. And I knew exactly how I was going to use it. I didn't act right away. Revenge takes timing, not emotion. For the next few weeks, I watched their accounts carefully, not illegally, just as part of my normal review duties. They opened both business and personal accounts with our branch, and every move they made told a story. Margaret transferred money back and forth between checking and savings like she was hiding something. Jason used the business debit card for dinners and casino withdrawals. Courtney's name was tied to a credit card maxed out on online shopping. By the third week, I had what I needed. When their business loan file came up for regional review, I flagged it. High risk, poor repayment history, unstable income sources. All facts, nothing personal. Still, I wanted to see it through myself. The next time they came in for a follow-up, I was ready. They walked into my office together, Margaret leading, Jason behind her, Courtney trailing like she didn't want to be there. I greeted them politely. "Thanks for coming in. I've finished reviewing your application." Margaret leaned forward, flashing that familiar smile. "So, when can we expect the funds?" I looked at her calmly. "Unfortunately, the bank won't be extending credit at this time." Jason frowned. "What? That doesn't make sense. We gave you collateral." "Yes," I said, sliding the file toward them, "but your property is still in arrears on property tax. Your credit score is below the minimum threshold, and your cash flow projections don't meet underwriting standards." They stared at me like I was speaking another language. "I can't approve it," I said simply. Margaret's face hardened. "You're making a mistake, young lady. We've been loyal customers for years." I kept my tone polite. "Actually, this is your first account with our institution." Jason leaned back, sneering. "You think you can sit there in your little suit and tell us no?" I met his eyes. "That's exactly what I'm saying." The silence that followed was thick. The same kind of silence I remembered from my father's living room, right before they told me I wasn't part of the family. Margaret finally stood. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "I doubt it." After they left, I did what any responsible banker would do. Filed internal reports noting suspicious transactions on their accounts. I didn't accuse them of anything, just followed procedure. When compliance reviewed the reports, they found enough irregular activity to freeze all 3 accounts pending investigation. Within a week, their business funds were inaccessible. Another week later, automatic payments started bouncing, utilities, car leases, credit cards. They came storming back into the branch 2 Mondays later, demanding answers. I wasn't at the desk that day. I was in the glass office nearby. I watched as they shouted at the teller, insisting there was a mistake. The manager stepped in, explained that compliance had flagged their accounts. The expressions on their faces went from anger to confusion to panic. I waited until they left before walking to my window and lowering the blinds. That's when I let myself smile. Not a big one, just enough to feel the tension in my jaw fade for the first time in years. A month later, Margaret tried to reopen accounts at another branch. She couldn't. Her name was on the regional watch list for financial misconduct. Jason's small business license was suspended for unpaid taxes. Courtney's credit score tanked after multiple delinquencies. They didn't lose their money because I took it. They lost it because they never learned how to keep it. All I did was make sure the rules applied to them for once. A few months later, my branch got a new client, a small nonprofit that offered financial literacy workshops for young adults. They asked if I'd volunteer to teach budgeting and credit management. I said yes. During my first class, I told the group, money doesn't change people. It just shows who they already are. Afterward, when the room was empty, I looked out the window at the street, thinking about my dad. He'd always said, "Don't fight dirty, just be better." I wasn't sure he'd approve of what I did, but I knew he'd understand why I did it. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't taking what they stole. It's proving you could rebuild from nothing while they destroy themselves, trying to keep everything they never earned.